welcome back to Reviews from Hell. So we've got a triple feature today. I know typically these episodes are like one movie. However, 3 pretty big horror movies came out in October, and I did not get the chance to give them their own videos shortly after release. So I thought instead of doing 3 videos spaced out over the next couple weeks, I would just cram all 3 into one. So there are time codes in the video and down in the description if you'd like to skip ahead for a certain movie, or skip a movie you haven't seen before, or just jump around in the video. I'm going in release date order, which also sort of matches up the order in which I saw them in. So yeah, we're going to be covering Totally Killer, The Exorcist Believer, and Five Nights at Freddy's in this video. So first up is Totally Killer. This came out on October 6th on Prime Video. I think I watched it the day it came out on the weekend, that weekend. And it was cheesy, but you know what? I had a lot of fun watching it. And that's something I'm trying to do more, where I do reviews of a lot of movies. I'm trying not to watch them and review them in my head as I'm watching them, because I feel like I don't totally get the right viewing experience if I'm trying to write the review in my head. So this, I think I just shut my brain off to watch it. And honestly, I'm kind of glad I did, because, you know, it's very cheesy and cliche. There's only so much you can do with slasher movies. But this was a pretty unique concept, and I really enjoyed it. So we're going to go through the plot, and I will share my thoughts on it with you. In the small town of Vernon on October 27th, 29th, and 31st, 1987, 3 teenage girls named Tiffany Clark, Marissa Song, and Heather Hernandez were killed by the Sweet 16 killer, each having been stabbed 16 times on the nights of their 16th birthdays. What's good about this movie is they've done this trend, almost, that horror movies will do. You know, like Michael Myers attacks on Halloween and stuff, and like there's always 2 ghost faces. They are sort of setting the example of like what's gonna happen, if that makes any sense, and sort of not even laying the plot line for the movie out, but just sort of giving us something to snack on while we wait for the actual movie to start. And one thing I will say, the whole 80s theme, they pulled it off really, really, really well. They did a really good job with the costuming and the hair. I feel like the 80s, especially in sort of this modern era, is kind of a time period that's been overdone, but I really do think that Stranger Things is at fault for that, because Stranger Things takes place in the 80s, and it feels like ever since Stranger Things came out, that sort of every other thing after it takes place in the 80s. There's been like an 80s resurgence, and I'm sure there's probably like a trend throughout media where maybe like every 40 years you start making stuff that took place 40 years ago. I don't know if that's true, though. I'm racking my brain right now for an example, but I cannot think of one. But I do think I'm putting out my prediction now. In 2040, if we are all still here and the planet hasn't burned and we all haven't died from a multitude of causes, I do think there will be a resurgence in 2000s themed slashers. I feel like I think Five Nights at Freddy's takes place in the 90s. No one really has a newer looking cell phone or whatever. But I do think that there is a pattern with when sort of like nostalgia based movies can take place. So anyways, let's get back to the actual review part and stop my rambling. That makes absolutely no sense. In the present day, teenager Jamie Hughes goes to a concert with her friend Amelia on Halloween night while her mother Pam stays at home. Pam used to be friends with the 3 victims of the Sweet 16 killer, and while handing out candy, she is attacked by the killer, who stabs her to death. This was a really, really good scene. It's the mom from Modern Family. I've never seen Modern Family. I can't remember what her name is. Julie Bowen. I just looked. I did not think that she could pull off being killed on screen really good, because obviously my only sort of knowledge of her acting abilities is Modern Family clips I've seen on TikTok, because I haven't actually watched the show. But she did such a good job being murdered on screen, not in real life. And this whole thing is really cool. As Jamie grieves Pam's death, she helps Amelia put the finishing touches on a time machine she created for a school project and is approached by reporter Chris Dubasage, who tells her that Pam received a note from the killer that she kept secret. You're next, one day. Now, I do think the reporter guy is kind of a dweeb, and looking back on it now, I think you can tell from the beginning that he's involved somehow. I mean, obviously, he's, like, beating it to death, like, concept-wise, because he has the whole, like, podcast centered around the Sweet 16 killer, and then, like, sort of a murder that happened fucking 40 years ago. You can only talk about it so much before people get sick of it. At night, Jamie is chased by the killer and hides in the time machine, which activates and sends her back to 1987. She realizes that if she stops the Sweet 16 killer's original spree, she can save Pam's life. Jamie, masquerading as an exchange student from Canada. I love this part. I am an Atlantic Canadian. It is so funny that they chose her to be from PEI. That is absolutely hilarious, because I don't think anyone in the United States knows what Prince Edward Island is. I've met people from mainland Nova Scotia who have no idea where I'm from, and I'm in the same province as them. It is so funny that they chose, I mean, arguably the most marketable Atlantic province. Like, you think like Anne of Green Gables and like Cow's Ice Cream and stuff. Obviously, if you've never heard of Prince Edward Island, you're gonna have no idea what I'm talking about. Absolutely hilarious they picked Prince Edward Island. Would have been even funnier if they picked Newfoundland. This is for my Atlantic Canadian watchers, of which there are probably none, I would assume. But if you are, let me know in the comments. Maritime pride. Jamie, masquerading as an exchange student from Canada, discovers that Pam and her friends were despised by everyone in town as they were bullies. I did find the mean girl concept very cheesy. I feel like High School Mean Girls is a concept that's kind of been overdone. I mean, it's something easy to do, but I don't know. Personally, it just feels like anytime you do a Mean Girls in high school, like, not even subplot, but just you have those characters in a movie, and I don't know, it feels like it sort of lines up in a weird way with, like, the Mean Girls movie. Like, you've got, like, the leader, and then you've got, like, the dumb ditzy one, and then you've got, like, I haven't seen Mean Girls in, like, 14 years. Was Gretchen Smart or something? The not blonde mean girl that isn't Lindsay Lohan, who I think now is a reporter for Fox News. What was her, like, trait? Because Regina was the leader, and then Amanda Seyfried was dumb and ditzy, and Gretchen was the smart one? I don't know. Anyways, I mean, it's a high school based movie. Obviously, you've got to have, like, a clique sort of thing. I am just tired of seeing the same iteration of it. But this movie did it well. I feel like I'm criticizing this movie and being like, but this movie did it well. I am not a professional reviewer. I wish I was. I wish I had the film theory knowledge to talk about movies freely and have it actually make sense and be rooted in academia somehow, if that makes any sense. Jamie manages to convince Amelia's mother, Lauren, and a teenager named Doug, her school's present-day principal, to help her. Although Jamie manages to infiltrate a party hosted by Tiffany, she is unable to stop her murder. I do think it's cool that she was able to, well, not that she was able, but just the way things happened, like, timeline stuff changed. And it changed the outcome of the present day, despite the fact that the people that were killed were still the same people that got killed in the different timeline. Yeah. And I do think the party scene was cool. I loved the waterbed. That was hilarious. It reminded me of the whole waterbed thing in Licorice Pizza. Using the trauma to bond with Pam, she infiltrates the group and convinces them to leave for the weekend. Although this backfires, they end up at the cabin where Marissa was killed in the original timeline. As Jamie works to protect Marissa, Heather is murdered instead, changing the timeline. This whole cabin sequence was done really, really, really well, especially the fight at the end. I feel like it was choreographed really well, and, like, there was some pretty shocking stuff in it, and I do like that she tried so hard not to get her parents to hook up before they were supposed to, timeline-wise, and they did anyways. And then it also sort of throws in the ring, not even, And then it also throws in the concept that, like, maybe her dad is actually the killer because he's there and stuff. And then there is, I don't know, like, look at Scream. Like, Billy was the killer and he was Sydney's boyfriend and stuff. I do think this cabin sequence was really good. Yeah. On Halloween night, the group reconvenes at an amusement park while Lauren works on turning a popular attraction into a makeshift time machine. On Halloween night, the group reconvenes at an amusement park while Lauren works on turning a popular attraction into a makeshift time machine for Jamie to travel forward. In the present, Chris helps Amelia fix their time machine as they realize what the timeline is changing. The group lures the Sweet 16 killer into a haunted house where he attacks them, only to be impaled by Kara, the future town sheriff, with a scythe. Doug is revealed as the killer, seeking revenge on the group for the death of his girlfriend, Trish. Marissa reveals that she, Tiffany, and Heather got Trish drunk one night and let her drive home with her dying in an accident. That plotline came so out of left field. I was honestly, not surprised in, like, a good way. Like, look at what they did. More just like, I can't believe that there is a drunk driving accident subplot in this movie. It does obviously it gives sort of the motivation for the Sweet 16 killer to do what he does. It does feel very Heathers to me, though. What's her name? Martha from Heathers. It sort of reminds me of that. And then, once again, that's just the trend of teenagers in high school movies. Yeah. I guess looking at that, then this sort of group of popular girls is more like the Heathers instead of the Mean Girls from Mean Girls, because there's 4 Heathers and there's only 3 Mean Girls if you don't count Lindsay Lohan, because she's not like a quote-unquote real one. Yeah, so Marissa reveals that she, Tiffany, and Heather got Trish drunk one night and let her drive home after, like, making fun of her and stuff, and then she died in a drunk driving accident, but Pam wasn't there. And then Jamie wonders why Pam got that note that said, "You're next" one day, and then a second killer appears and slits Marissa's throat. The second killer chases Jamie, killing Chris's father along the way. The two face off in a new time machine as it activates, and the killer is revealed to be Chris from the present. Doug was the original killer, but Chris murdered Pam and forged the note in order to generate more content for his podcast. This whole sequence in, like, the time machine on the way back to the present day is nuts. They did it really, really, really well, and it's a really effective scene. The fight is really good. And then obviously the conclusion of it is good. The two fight and Jamie kicks him into the spinning machine, killing him, and then he bursts into pink mist. I think there's a reference to that earlier when I think someone has a dream that they turn into pink mist or something. So it's like a callback to that's said earlier in the movie, which is cool. Upon returning to the present day, she finds that Pam is still alive. Since Jamie's parents got together earlier than they had originally, she now has an older brother named Jamie, and her name is now Colette. Totally setting up for a sequel, so I'm interested to see what the storyline is going to be for that. I do think it was sort of a cool idea to have Amelia's mom have the notebook of stuff that's different in this timeline to the previous to, like, keep note of, obviously, for when she comes back to present day. I thought that was a good idea instead of just forcing her into this without any knowledge. I do think her having an older brother since the parents got together earlier was cool, and then obviously they probably named him Jamie because her mom would have remembered this Jamie from the 80s that, like, saved her life and stuff and, like, obviously disappeared and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed Totally Killer. I thought it was a really good movie. I really want to watch it again. I feel like since I knew I was going to review it eventually, I don't know, I feel like I need to watch it again. I should have watched it again before I review it. I felt like I would have had a lot more to say if I had if I had watched it again before recording this review. But that's just how it is. My thoughts on the fly of Totally Killer. It's on Prime Video, so if you haven't seen it and you just listened to all this, sorry I spoiled you on everything. And you should totally go check it out. So I know the saying is a rose between two thorns. However, this is a thorn between two roses. And that film is The Exorcist Believer, which also came out on October 6th. I think I watched this October 9th. Yeah, basically, it's David Gordon Green trying to do the Halloween trilogy, except with the Exorcist series, where it ixnays all of the sequels and just goes right from the original film to this new timeline. And it's kind of a mess. Yeah, it's not very good. I do think that there was stuff cut out of it that was maybe important to see. It's already kind of long as it is. It's almost 2 hours long. It's 111 minutes. Feels much, much, much longer than that. I wasn't going to watch this because I have a troubled past with the Exorcist series. I have talked about it many times on the channel. Basically, I got jump scared as a kid with a photo of Linda Blair as the Exorcist when I was very young, and that started sort of a lifelong fear of the Exorcist. And then a couple years ago, the drive-in was doing like an old horror movie series, and I think they were playing Nightmare on Elm Street second, but the Exorcist was first. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna fucking power through and watch it. And it was not enjoyable for me, honestly. Not even like I was scared way. It was just sort of boring. I think maybe I need to rewatch it. But it definitely wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, the stuff that scared me wasn't even the stuff that was supposed to be scary. There was just little things that just made me go like, whoa. Anyways, back to The Exorcist Believer. So I wasn't going to watch it. And then I started seeing all these articles on like horror film Twitter that people were sharing of it being like, The Exorcist Believer is like slightly anti-abortion, and they make it kind of clear the whole time that this movie does not condone abortion. And I was like, that is the weirdest fucking concept to put in an Exorcist movie. So I guess I kind of need to watch it now to see if it's true or just an exaggeration. It is kind of true, especially a one part. It's basically like, if it's so weird, it's like the nurse, I'll talk about it more once I get to that part in the plot, but basically the nurse that performs the exorcism is like, oh man, if I didn't have an abortion before becoming a nun, I wouldn't have been able to find my true purpose in life, which is being the exorcist for these two little girls, which is very weird. Very, very weird. And I do think sort of the articles talking about it maybe exaggerate just how often they talk about it. And then obviously this film does have a lot of conservative characters in it because it does take place in like Georgia and deals with a lot of religious themes. Obviously it's an Exorcist movie, so religion stuff is going to be very prominent, but I did not expect for there to be a decent amount of anti-abortion subplots in this film. It was like, okay, I probably won't ever watch it again, but I don't know, it wasn't so terrible that I regret watching it, but it wasn't so good that I would watch it again. It was like, cool, I guess I can watch the next one that comes out now and know what's going on. And then, I don't know, I like to stay up to date with what's going on in horror movie world, obviously, because a big part of my life is creating content about horror movies. Why else would I be here? Yeah, so let's jump into this plot. It's quite long. This is probably the longest plot description on Wikipedia out of these three movies. So bear with me. In Haiti, photographer Victor Fielding and his pregnant wife Seren, blessed by a voodoo practitioner, are on their honeymoon until a massive earthquake ensues. This is honestly where the first issue in the movie is. It's similar to true crime stuff. I don't find it morally ethical to make movies or TV shows based off events where people actually died and lost their lives and have like documentaries on that. That's okay, because documentaries are like educational and you're learning about it and stuff, but I do like the Jeffrey Dahmer show on Netflix. You don't fucking learn anything from that. That is like just, it stirred up so much shit for the families of the victims from that. And this is based off the earthquake in Haiti in like 2010, I think, which was a real thing that like affected so many people's lives. So I just found it weird that it's like, if the earthquake in Haiti had not happened, these little girls would have not been possessed. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? It's so weird. It's so unnecessary. They could have had them be anywhere else and there could have been an earthquake and it would have been fine. But they chose to choose a humongous global tragedy to give subtext as to why these girls got possessed. It's so weird. Anyways, Serene is gravely injured. She tells Victor to protect their unborn daughter, Angela, and then the paramedics tell Victor he must either choose to save his wife or his child. This is a whole ethics debate where it's like, do you save your wife and then you have to grieve the loss of your wife while also raising a newborn baby that's probably going to have complications due to the fact that the mother is dead? Or do you save the child and you lose the child together, but you save your partner, your wife, and grieve the loss of the child together with the knowledge that you could probably have another kid again if all goes well? Very weird, and sort of the start of the pro-life sentiment, because obviously you see the baby is the one that gets chosen to live, and the wife dies. We later learn in the movie that he actually tried to save his wife, but it didn't work out, so they saved the baby instead. So, like, right off the bat, it's like the unborn child is more important than the woman carrying the unborn child. Very weird stance for the Exorcist movie. Very weird. I don't know what they were going for here, because, I don't know. Personally, I find most horror fans to be very progressive in their views and stuff, and, like, be pro-choice. So it was very weird to have this in it. I feel like this is the biggest hurdle you have to get over to understand this movie, is what is the pro-life thing going on. 13 years later, Victor has lost faith in God since Serene's death while raising Angela on his own in Georgia. One day after school, Angela ventures into the woods with her Baptist best friend Catherine to perform a seance and attempt to contact Angela's mother. Now, for all its faults, I do really like this concept that they weren't just kids, like, dicking around with a Ouija board for fun. They were doing it to get in touch with Angela's mother, which I do think is very sweet, because obviously she never knew her mother, and her father is not very vocal in talking about it. And I do think having a religious best friend would probably, I don't know, like, motivate you more to try and do that, because obviously Baptists believe in, like, heaven and stuff. So I do think the motivation behind them actually getting possessed, being a seance to talk to Angela's mother, is cool. However, the steps you need to get there from the earthquake in Haiti it's just like that big domino effect thing. It's very weird. Victor realizes his daughter is missing and contacts Catherine's parents, Miranda and Tony, as a 3-day manhunt ensues. The girls are found in a barn on the 3rd day. Though traumatized, they seem relatively normal and are taken home, having only suffered burn marks to their feet. The next day, Angela suddenly attacks Victor and begins convulsing, while Catherine has an outburst during a church service in which the sacrament of the Holy Communion is observed. Like, this movie has a lot of faults, and that's sort of, I guess, why the shining, quote-unquote shining moments of the film really shine through. I do think having Catherine walking down the aisle of the church, like, covered in the communion wine, like, screaming the body and the blood, I think it is, that was really cool. It was a little weird, but obviously you want the little girls to be acting weird so that the parents know that something's up. Victor admits Angela into a hospital where their nurse neighbor Anne attends to her, and Miranda begins to theorize that the girls traveled to hell and brought a demon back with them, hence the burns to their feet. Like, that's crazy. Like, the theory kind of works, because you could be like, they ran away from home and, I don't know, their shoes got wet and they're just little girls, so they took their shoes off and then they were walking for days trying to find somewhere to go, and that's why their feet are all burnt and stuff. Or, like, they made a fire in the woods somewhere and it, like, burnt their shoes and their feet or whatever. And then sort of having the religious aspect being they went to hell and brought a demon back with them, and that's why their feet are burnt, because they were walking on the floor of hell, which is probably like burning rocks and fire. The girls' conditions worsen as their burns become more severe. Anne, convinced that Angela is possessed after the latter reveals her knowledge of Anne's expertise in the Novitiate? Vitilate? I don't know what that word is. As a prospective nun, which ended after a pregnancy that resulted in abortion, gives Victor a memoir written by Chris McNeil, who experienced a similar situation with her daughter Regan in 1973. This whole sequence with Anne and Victor on her doorstep, where she was like, yeah, like, I was about to become a nun, and then I got pregnant, and then they don't really make it clear in the film if she lost the baby or she made the choice to abort. They don't really make it clear, and they sort of make it seem like she wouldn't have been able to find a purpose in life if she had the baby. It's very weird. It's a very weird sequence. Once again, just another weird pro-life thing smack dab in the middle of a movie. And then obviously you've got Chris McNeil, who was the mother of Regan in the original Exorcist film. This is sort of the Jamie Lee Curtis out in the woods in Halloween thing where you don't see her for a bit and then it's like a big reveal. And I guess it would be a big reveal if you hadn't seen the trailers. But yeah, this is your legacy character coming back to tie the whole thing together. Krista spent her life researching exorcisms in every culture while becoming world-renowned for her studies. However, Regan became distant from her mother due to the memoir and has not seen her since. I do think that is a good plot line. It would have been a little too on the nose if it was Regan that had done all the research on the exorcisms. I think if you sort of lived through that, you wouldn't necessarily devote your life to wanting to learn about it. However, I can see if you were the mother of a child that got possessed, you would sort of devote your life to learning about it in every single way so that if it happens again, you know how to save your child. And then yeah, I do like that they sort of had a, like, Linda Blair obviously isn't in this part of the film, but they do have sort of a corner of the room that's all kinds of little pictures of her hanging and stuff, and I do think it was a nice way to call back. And then obviously when she does show up, it's not like it's shown in any trailer or anything, so you do sort of think that's as far as it'll go. Similar to how in Scream 6, where Neve Campbell didn't agree with the pay that they wanted to give her, so they didn't have Sydney in the movie. However, they did have a character have a conversation with her off screen. I feel like if they hadn't have gotten Linda Blair for her little cameo in the movie, they could have done that. And I think it's a good homage to the character. Because obviously, the Exorcist movie did a lot of damage mentally and physically on Linda Blair, so I can see her not wanting to return to a role that probably has caused her a lot of strife in life almost 50 years later. Victor searches for Chris and takes her to the hospital to see Angela before going to Catherine's home. While Victor attends to Miranda and Tony, Chris goes upstairs and begins to perform her own deliverance ritual on Catherine. Catherine stabs Chris multiple times in the eyes with a cross, blinding her, and she is rushed to the hospital. I think it's interesting that they decided to do a thing with a cross and the kids that are possessed, because there is a very not safe for work sort of fucked up scene in the original Exorcist movie that involves a possessed child and a cross, and I'm really glad that they didn't try to redo that in this. I feel like that cross scene is the equivalent of the tree scene in the original Evil Dead, where then obviously they sort of never really did it again in another movie. And then they obviously didn't want Chris to be around the whole time, so giving her a reason to not be at the actual exorcism, I think, was maybe good for the plot. Because obviously you've got someone that knows a lot about exorcisms, and you want the exorcism scene to sort of be a struggle for all the characters. So having not an expert there helps. Victor, Miranda, Tony, and Anne reach out to the church for an exorcism. Chris advises Victor to use methods from all different cultures, and the group seeks the help of Don Revens, Catherine's family's Baptist pastor, Stuart, a Pentecostal preacher, and Dr. Beehive, a rootwork healer. The group plans an ecumenical exorcism, but the local Catholic diocese forbids Father Maddox from participating as they feel that the children are suffering from a psychiatric disorder. Very normal of them to have the Catholic priest not be allowed, or not letting him go to the exorcism. I just think that's funny. Not even funny. I don't even really know my thoughts on that, because I'm not a religious person, so I don't know the differences between all the different subcategories of Catholicism. But I know that I don't think any of the churches are good, but I don't think the Catholic Church especially is very good. And I do think it's very funny that these two little girls are obviously possessed, and they're like, they've got mental illness. They're not possessed. They're mentally ill. Yeah, they're mentally ill because they have a demon in them, and they have to get the demon out. Guys? Jeez. The girls are tied to chairs as the group proceeds with the exorcism. Anne uses a crucifix with the Saint Benedict medal engraved on it to battle the demon. I do think having the girls hooked up to heart monitors and stuff was cool, because I think obviously that was supposed to be sort of Anne's reason to be there, is to be the nurse and obviously to provide first aid if something bad is to happen. And then there's, since they can't get the Catholic guy there, she steps in as the exorcist. And then, as I said earlier, there's the weird thing where it's like, man, if I had never gotten rid of that baby, I wouldn't be here to be the exorcist today. The demon reveals that Victor did not choose to keep Angela alive 13 years ago. He chose Serene, but she died from her injuries. So then that obviously retcons the little bit of pro-life, not even propaganda, I can't think of the word, but the little pro-life tease they give you at the beginning of the movie. And I don't know. I think he made the right choice keeping his wife alive, because, you know, you can have another kid, but you can find another wife, but you can't find another like your wife trademark. Obviously, if you plan to spend the rest of your life with that person. That's a whole other can of worms. As Anne reads from the biblical text of Ezekiel 16 while holy water is poured on the children, the demon begins to shriek. I do think the exorcism scene was done really good. The special effects on them was good, except it made their hairlines recede, which was weird. It's like, man, I hope I never get possessed, because I would look terrible if my hairline started here. I mean, obviously, they want them to look terrible and stuff because they're possessed and stuff. But yeah, I think the sequence was done well. It's gross and stuff. One movie I fully expected them to do what they did in the original Exorcist film and have someone piss, because in the original Exorcist film, when Regan first gets possessed, she comes downstairs and pisses on the floor. And I was like, you know what? This movie is weird enough so far that someone's probably going to piss on the floor soon. And no one did. Or maybe that was something that was cut out of the movie. But it was just like, man, they've done so much weird stuff in this movie. It wouldn't surprise me if they have someone piss on the floor. The demon tells him that he needs to choose which of the girls gets to live and which one will die. And if a choice is not made, it will kill them both. This is another fucking crazy, crazy scene in this movie. Especially because, you know, Victor and Angela are black and the Baptist family is white. And then I don't even know if they really address it in the film, but I don't know. Georgian Baptist people can be racist. Lots of conservative people are racist. So I was fully expecting the white father to say some racist stuff. He has a very over-the-top performance. It's very, very, it's like, have you acted before, sir? Not in a mean way, but it's very over the top. Very, very over the top. While Miranda and Victor both refuse to forsake each other's child, Maddox, who has a change of heart, rejoins the group. Maddox reads from the Roman ritual only for the demon to snap his neck and kill him. When he shows up, that sort of feels like a fucking Marvel scene where there's like a cameo and then they get killed immediately. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny how it's like the fucking Avengers theme started playing and then they just like, they kill him. He just dies. Victor regains his faith and begins to pray the Lord's Prayer, which he learned as a child. As Victor apologizes to Angela and uses Serene's scarf to attempt to strengthen her against the demon, Tony yells that he chooses Catherine and Angela flatlines. This was a really good plot twist, that you think that Angela dies and Catherine lives, and then they pull an Uno reverse card on you. Suddenly, the demon reveals that the one that was chosen would be the one who died. Catherine screams for her parents as the demon drags her to hell while Angela starts to breathe. That was a crazy scene. It's literally an Uno reverse card. Good plot twist. Didn't really see it coming. But then also I didn't know sort of what else they would do with that sort of thing. Police arrive as Miranda and Tony fail to resuscitate Catherine, and Victor tearfully reunites with his daughter. In the aftermath, Victor visits Serene's grave, Miranda and Tony mourn the loss of Catherine, and Angela returns to school. In the hospital, Chris is reunited with Regan, who forgives her mother, and they emotionally embrace. I do think it was nice they got Linda Blair to do that little cameo at the end. I don't think this movie would have worked as well if they had her as a character in it the whole time. And I do think showing that she would return for that is maybe a good tease at a sequel or something that she would be involved in. The thing is, I hate to be talking about Marvel movies in a review that has nothing to do with Marvel movies, but it feels like Marvel movies have ruined cameos in any type of movie ever. Like, from now on, for the rest of history, every single cameo or surprise appearance in a movie is going to feel like it's a fucking Marvel cameo reveal. Because you're just so used to it at this point. And, you know, there's only so many ways you can do a good reveal, and I feel like Marvel's done them all. So anytime you see it in another movie, it's like, this is fucking Captain America summoning Thor's hammer. That's what this is. Regan showing up. This is everyone at Tony Stark's funeral, including the kid from Iron Man 3. It's, yeah. This movie is watchable, however, not rewatchable. It is okay. It is just a movie. I will not watch it again. However, I will go see the sequel to see if it's as terrible. I know they have a trilogy planned, but the reviews on this kind of tanked, so I do wonder if it will actually get made. What is it? The sequel is called The Exorcist Deceiver, which is supposed to be out in 2025. It says here that The Hollywood Reporter claims that there will be some degree of creative rethink for the next two films, and David Gordon Green has expressed doubt about his participation in this movie. And rightfully so. I mean, not everyone was happy with the new Halloween trilogy. I didn't hate it. I didn't necessarily enjoy it all that much. But I do really think he should step away from doing these legacy sequel trilogy things, and they should get someone different to do them. So that was The Exorcist Believer. We have one more film to cover, and that is the recently released cultural phenomenon that is Five Nights at Freddy's The Movie. Not to be confused with Five Nights at Freddy's The Game. Now, if you go back on the channel, I did a trailer reaction to this video where I inserted some clips from a Twitch stream where I played Five Nights at Freddy's for the first time, and I literally lost my voice from screaming. I am a very paranoid, easily scared person, and this pushed me over the edge because I have watched playthroughs, so I know what happens. However, being in the driver's seat was quite scary, and I didn't enjoy my experience at all. However, I did enjoy watching this movie because it was funny, but it wasn't great. It was funny to watch because, I don't know, like Jack Black in the Five Nights at Freddy's merch singing the song, and fucking Matt Pat cameoing, and then like the Bite of 87 and people printing out tiny pictures of Markiplier to put on the inside of their glasses so it looks like he's playing the game, the movie. If that makes any sense. And then you've got fucking Shaggy in this movie. I saw this TikTok today that was like, I wish I could go back in time and tell my 13-year-old self that they made a Five Nights at Freddy's movie with Peeta Mellark from The Hunger Games and Shaggy from live-action Scooby-Doo. It's crazy. I was gonna go see this in theaters on, like, opening night, and we were going to go to, like, the 9:50 show, which is very late. And my theater, where I live, is never popping off. It is a dying thing here. The parking lot was full of 14-year-olds in fucking Five Nights at Freddy's closet cosplays, like, singing and dancing in the parking lot. And then immediately when I go online, I see a video of people fighting in another theater somewhere in the world. Fighting on the floor over the movie. It was crazy. I was like, I can't go see this in theaters because theater etiquette has just gone out the window. That's a whole other can of worms. There's a lot of cans of worms in this video that need to be opened, but I don't feel like opening them right now. So anyways, I watched Five Nights at Freddy's at home on Halloween after I only got one trick-or-treater. So I was like, I'm kind of upset. I'm gonna watch Five Nights at Freddy's. Also known as Trapped in a Pizzeria with Josh Hutcherson. So let's jump into this plot. At Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a once successful but now abandoned family entertainment center, a night security guard desperately attempts to flee from an unseen force but is captured and strapped to a torture device which mutilates his face and kills him. Sometime later, mall security guard Mike Schmidt is fired after assaulting a negligent father whom he mistook for a kidnapper. Mike's career counselor, Steve Raglan, offers him a job as a night guard at the restaurant. Though initially reluctant, Mike accepts after social services threaten to take custody of his younger sister Abby and pass her over to their estranged aunt Jane, who desires the custody monthly payments. The opening of this movie is actually really good, the sequence with the security guard, and then you've got the whole Josh Hutcherson and the kid thing, and they don't really say outright that it's his little sister to begin with, so it's like, are you his child? Are you his child? Because then you don't see any parents around, so you're like, are you a teen? Were you a former teen father, Josh Hutcherson, in this Five Nights at Freddy's thing? Is this your daughter? And then, I mean, obviously later you find out it's his sister and stuff. Yeah. On the first night, Mike falls asleep and dreams about his brother Garrett's kidnapping. He meets 5 children who witness the crime but who run away when he approaches them. On the second night, Mike has the same dream, but when he attempts to confront one of the children, he is attacked, causing him to awaken. Mike meets police officer Vanessa Shelley, who notices his wounds and applies bandages to him. Vanessa shows Mike around the restaurant and tells him that it closed during the 1980s after 5 children disappeared there. I think the introduction of Vanessa's character was good. However, this statement I'm going to make here only applies to a very niche audience. This movie felt like a Riverdale Bughead fanfiction. Think about it. Think about it. You've got a disgruntled, black-haired guy with a younger sister who he takes care of by himself, who meets a blonde police officer with a high ponytail, whose father is basically a serial killer. This movie is a Bughead fanfiction. And thank you to my best friend for pointing this out to me and letting me discuss it, because it was her concept that she came up with, but I do think it rings true to this day. This is a Bughead fanfiction. Meanwhile, Jane hires a gang, which includes Abby's babysitter Max, to vandalize the restaurant in order to get Mike fired and hasten Jane's gaining custody of Abby. The gang breaks in once Mike leaves his shift, but the restaurant's animatronic mascots, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Mr. Cupcake, come alive and slaughter the entire group. Max's disappearance forces Mike to bring Abby along on his next shift. Now, this is a PG-rated movie, so obviously there is very little gore or murder happening in it. Sort of the only kill that I was like, this is really cool, is when the babysitter gets chomped in half. She gets completely chomped in half. They only show it in a shadow, because obviously you can't show that in a PG-13 movie, but they did it really well. On the third night, the animatronics come alive and befriend Abby, but are hostile towards Mike. He discovers that the animatronics are possessed by the ghosts of missing children, whose leader, a young blonde boy, consistently mentions a yellow rabbit. On the fourth night, Abby is accidentally injured when she, Mike, and Vanessa are bonding with the animatronics. She does not get accidentally injured. She walks up and strums Bonnie's guitar, which is coursing with electricity. It is her own goddamn fault for going to touch the guitar. Yeah. I mean, it was her fault for going up and doing that. However, I don't know. Don't touch people's guitars when they're playing guitar. And this never would have happened. It would have been fine. Anyways, Vanessa learns Mike is attempting to identify Garrett's killer and warns him not to bring Abby to the restaurant again. Mike gets Jane to babysit Abby, much to her frustration, as he goes back to the restaurant during the day and overdoses on sleeping pills. There's a sequence where Vanessa and Mike sit next to a river, and, right off the bat, you know that Mike is low income. He's not doing great money-wise. And obviously this takes place in the US, where there is no free healthcare, and he's got a prescription for sleeping pills. And Vanessa knows that something is wrong with this guy, and instead of being, compassionate or whatever, she throws his prescription in the river, and then the very next day threatens to shoot him. Girl, look at who you're working with. Don't throw people's prescriptions in the river, and then threaten to shoot them the next day. Don't do that. I also did not remember he overdoses on sleeping pills. I don't remember that. On the fifth night, the children appear in Mike's subsequent dream and tell him that he can stay with Garrett forever in exchange for Abby. Mike initially accepts their proposal, but when he changes his mind, he is attacked and wakes up strapped to a torture device. He escapes the device by removing pins that his predecessor had loosened, but is severely wounded by Foxy. Meanwhile, a damaged yellow Freddy animatronic, possessed by the blonde boy, kills Jane and takes Abby back to the restaurant in a taxi. Now, they have the damaged Freddy animatronic show up. However, I did not realize it was supposed to be a different Freddy than the Freddy that's at the restaurant. I didn't realize it was supposed to be another fucked up animatronic. I was like, man, Freddy's been through the ringer in this movie. I didn't realize it was supposed to be a big cameo type thing. They didn't really make it so. And they've got a sequence with a taxi driver that I think is a YouTuber, and it gave me a good chuckle. Vanessa finds Mike and treats his injuries. After Mike explains his dream, Vanessa reveals that she is the daughter of William Afton, the serial killer who murdered Garrett and the 5 children by hiding their bodies in the animatronics, and that their souls are under his control. Realizing that the animatronics plan to kill Abby, Mike rushes to the restaurant with the necessary equipment to disable them. Mike disables Freddy and Bonnie and stops Chica from killing Abby, but is attacked by Mr. Cupcake and separated from Abby, who is pursued by Foxy. The animatronics are eventually defeated, but they are activated by Steve, who arrives wearing the yellow rabbit suit. Springtrap is here now, and it's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It's crazy that this movie is real, as he reveals himself to be William before knocking Mike unconscious. Now, my only thing with him having a different identity earlier in the movie is Matthew Lillard has a very distinct appearance. There's not too many other people that look like Matthew Lillard. He's got a very distinct face. So you're telling me that no one recognized Steve Raglan, the career coach, as the guy who ran Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? You're telling me that no one did a background check or something? I mean, I guess it's not really clear when this movie takes place, in like what year or whatever, so it's hard to tell what sort of technologies are available for people to look at, but no one has an iPhone, so 90s, I think? Anyways, also, if his daughter became a cop, why did she not do anything about it or drop an anonymous tip that, hey, maybe someone should look at the guy who ran the pizzeria where all those kids went missing and do a little comparison with this career counselor. I also do commend the writers for adding in the whole thing that if kids went missing, the last place you would look is at like a kid's birthday party place. Because obviously, there's always kids there. Why would they go missing there? Abby draws a picture of William murdering the missing children in order to free the animatronics from his influence. I think that sequence is cool where they have the picture wall with all these like pristine kids' drawings and then sort of a spotlight in the middle on this one of Springtrap holding hands with all these kids and then them realizing that that's what they know and then switching out the photo changes their mindset. I thought that was cool. Vanessa attempts to stop William from interfering with the plan, but he stabs her. Before William can kill Mike as well, Abby shows her drawing to the animatronics and they turn on him. Mr. Cupcake bites off part of William's suit, triggering its internal spring lock mechanisms, which fatally wound him. That sequence was nuts. Yeah, the spring lock thing, fucking brutal. Looks fucking brutal. Very weird that they added that in. Like, in the suits. As the animatronics drag him into a back room, Mike and Abby carry a wounded Vanessa out of the restaurant. She falls into a coma afterwards and is taken to the hospital. Mike continues to look after Abby as they resume their normal lives. Wow. Five Nights at Freddy's, that's where I want to be. They've set this up for a sequel, 100%. That is something that is going to happen probably in the next few years. It wouldn't surprise me if they've already got a fucking franchise mapped out. Because there's a bunch of games that are like sequels and spin-offs and stuff. So it wouldn't surprise me if this turns into a franchise very soon. Because everything's a franchise these days. So that was 3 movie reviews in one video. Let me know what your favorite of these 3 was down in the comments. Or something you enjoyed about one of these 3 movies. And we'll have a great old chat about these October releases down in the comments. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.